A lot of times, that family in the head tends to be mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, people that you're close to that are in your head, and you've internalized that voice about how much of a loser you are, or how you can't do this, you can't do that, you'll never be happy, you'll never be good enough. You got to push back on that. That is a manipulation that you've internalized, and you've turned it on yourself. Stop being your enemy and be your ally, and that's what you need to do. Can you really overcome the pain and scars of having a narcissistic parent? By the end of this video, you'll know the tools you can use to break free from that narcissistic parental influence. So let's break it down and let's get into it. First, let's define what narcissistic parental influence is. So first and foremost, it is a pattern of self-centered behavior by your parent. So everything they do has to come back on them, and it has to glorify them as an individual, has to empower their ego. Also, they tend to lack empathy towards your needs and feelings. So as you were growing up, we all encounter stuff where we're challenged, right? There's different things we're struggling with, school, friends, a whole host of stuff. And what happens is that the narcissistic parent is usually like, well, that's not really important because it doesn't pertain to me. So we don't see any empathy towards your struggles, towards your concerns, your feelings, your fears and issues. And also narcissistic parents, they engage in a lot, or they tend to engage in emotional manipulation. And this is an invalidation of your emotions. And this is, just like I mentioned, that's when you do have a sense of fear or a sense of pain, that perhaps it's your first breakup. Oof, remember that? Oh my God. That's terrible for everybody, because you feel like, oh no, that's the end of this relationship and I'll never date again and all this other stuff. And hopefully, you have a parent who understands that, remembers their experience, and they're compassionate about it. Your narcissistic parent isn't. Your narcissistic parent is typically like, well, you're going to have so many relationships in your life, and this was nothing. Or they might say something like, well, that person was terrible anyway. Or another one is, well, they were too good for you anyway. So you weren't smart enough, pretty enough, handsome enough, muscular enough, fast enough, whatever it is, for that person. So I'm not surprised they left you at all. And that's that emotional manipulation. It creates this internalized sense of doubt. And there's kind of a neglect for your basic needs. And that is that you're always secondarily responded to. Your needs, not only emotional needs, but sometimes it's physical needs. Sometimes it's about scheduling and responsibility. As parents, they're supposed to help you, whether it's you stay late from school or you miss the bus or whatever it may be. And the parent neglects those needs, neglects looking out. Is the homework done? Is this done? Is that done? Are they following up? Are they making sure that you have everything you need to move forward in your life and deal with the challenges and successes that you encounter? And there's also this tendency for this imposing unrealistic expectations that you probably felt, and that is that you have to be the best. Well, the best at what? Well, you have to be the best. You're always supposed to be the best. Every grade has to be 100, and if there's extra credit, don't forget, it's got to be 110. So you're always trying to reach this goal, right? This attainment, but it's not well defined, so you never know where you are. Are you close? Are you far? Are you succeeding? Are you failing? So you don't know, and it creates this internalized sense of doubt. So these parents have these imposing unrealistic expectations, or what it may be, and I think this is a great example that a client once told me many years ago, that his mom would have the expectation that every time at bat, he would hit a home run. Now, the reality of that is that you're not going to hit a home run every time you're up at bat, but the narcissistic parent expectation is that you are representative of me. So that means it's a home run every single time that you come up. By the way, if the parent were to go up to bat, they're not going to hit that home run either, but that doesn't matter. That's part of the narcissistic perspective and influence. I don't have to do it. I just have the expectation of you doing it, and that makes it okay. And then there's also challenges in forming a healthy sense of self and identity. And this goes to all those issues, all of those concerns. And this is why a lot of individuals, that are children of narcissistic parents, they often have this sense of brokenness inside, this sense of uncertainty and low self-esteem as to who they are, what they can achieve, and their own sense of value, because the parent used the child as a receptacle, so to speak, of their own fears, doubts, shame, and failures. So what happens is that child, the individual, and you may have encountered this as well, you internalize it. You internalize that view of self. You internalize a lot of that self-doubt. So you don't know which way to go in life. How can I know which way to go to be successful if I'm trying to please you, trying to please myself, trying to please society, trying to do all of these things? So instead, a lot of individuals go inward. And that inward can be anger. Anger turned inwards is often depression, anxiety, other types of issues. If it's external, sometimes it becomes alcohol abuse, could be drug abuse, could be gambling, promiscuity, a whole host of things. So that's a big component. And that's kind of that definition or explains that parental influence. Now let's talk about the most salient points to claiming or reclaiming your identity. First, you got to have self-understanding. You have to understand yourself in a fundamental way and how that helps you grow. Huge statement. Whoa. So self-understanding first is asking yourself what you want and what you need. Huge, huge questions. And I get it. Those are hard questions. So it's going to take time to think about it. You can think about it in the car. You can think about it when you're in the restroom. You can think about it in the shower. You can think about it anytime. What I want you to do is get out a piece of paper, line down the middle, want, need. What are these wants and needs for you? Don't worry about anybody else. And if you're not sure, a mental health provider can sometimes help to not only distill a lot of that confusion, and we can get to the nitty-gritty of it, but also can help kind of point you in a direction of which way to go. So that self-understanding is a huge component to understanding your identity. Next is that authenticity. And this is you have to live authentically and align it with who you really are. You have to live your true self. You have to live in a way that matches up to your values. What are your values? Do you believe that everybody should be nice to animals? Are you nice to animals? Are you somebody who believes that you should exercise and eat right and take care of yourself? If you believe that, are you living it? Are you living your views and values? Are you being authentic with your own self and with how you interact with the world? That's a huge component of your identity. And it goes to the next one, which is empowerment. And this is knowing that your identity empowers, it fuels you making better decisions. When you make decisions that help move you in a healthy direction, an adaptive direction, that is empowerment. And you feel stronger. You feel more committed. When you have to ask everybody their opinion to know that it's okay to do A, B, and C, you're giving away your sense of power. You're removing that sense of empowerment. I want you to make decisions for you that move you forward. What is that decision making? If you want to be a better, like me right now, I'm practicing guitar a lot, and I took a break for like 20 years, so really I went back to zero. And so if I want to be a better guitar player, then what I need to do is not ask everybody, am I good, am I good, am I good? But what are my goals? What do I want to achieve? And what does that look like? And that's my own sense of power. Because if I ask everybody, they're going to give me a bunch of different songs to play for them. And over time, I could simply learn those songs. But that's not going to give me that sense of fulfillment or empowerment about being comfortable with the instrument. And in this case, if you don't play an instrument, your instrument is yourself. So embrace that. That's a big one. Now, there's also healthy relationships. A strong identity fosters healthier relationships. So when you know yourself better, you're better able to communicate yourself in a more authentic way in your relationship. You're able to know what you want out of a relationship, whether it's intimacy, could be physical intimacy, could be emotional intimacy, could be having more fun, adventure in relationships, or working towards a goal with your partner, or whatever it may be. But it's having those healthy relationships. But you have to understand yourself and what your expectations and wants are in those relationships. And it's not about that person giving you what you're lacking. And that can be a big problem. And I think a lot of individuals that are children of narcissistic parents have that externalized view because you were conditioned to believe that your parent or the idealized parent, that they're going to tell you what a healthy relationship is. Problem is, tends not to be an actual healthy relationship, tends to be more problematic. So that's not what we want to hold on to. That's why you want to do that your own definition. You want to self-define that, and how your identity helps to fuel your healthier relationships. Healthier relationships typically have clear communication. They typically have fewer arguments and frustrations because of the communication. Also, talking openly to one another. Also, understanding that there will be challenges, that there will be issues that you will have with that person. You guys aren't always going to get along, and that's okay. You work through it. It's working through a lot of those difficulties. I have a number of other videos that talk about relationships, relationship burnout, thing like that. And I'll put the link here for the playlist. You can go through that and check that out. You might find some helpful ones in there as well. But don't do it yet, because we got more to go. Hang on. So resilience, and that can really help with identity. And when we talk about identity, that it really enhances that resilience in facing life challenges. You understand what you can take on as an individual. Also helps you understand when you need help and what kind of help you need. If you're not sure of what kind of help you need in a situation, that's a good indicator to ask someone, but don't ask them to do it for you, because what that does, it externalizes that sense of empowerment that we talked about, self-understanding, authenticity, all of those issues. What we want to do is we want you to embrace your resilience to get through the hard stuff. And you absolutely can do it. I know you're going to have that family in the head. That's that little chorus in your brain that's telling you, you can't do it. It's all that negative self-talk and all of that stuff. But you want to push that aside because you have resilience. Use your strategies, use your brain, use your adaptive strategies to get through your stressors and get through your barriers that hold you back. You can absolutely, positively do that. And now we'll go to the next section. And this is rediscovering yourself. And what I want you to do is I want you to engage in some self-reflection and really help to define your values. Now, we talked about that just a moment ago, but really looking at yourself not with blame, not with shame, and not with a BPD lens, if you fall along the spectrum of BPD, and not with a degree of depressive distortion, anxiety distortion, or anything like that. Looking at your authentic self, looking at yourself for your strengths and your weaknesses. Weaknesses don't mean you're weak and a failure. It means you're a human being. So it's recognizing that and doing that self-reflection, looking at yourself, but accepting yourself for what you can do and what you can't. And that is tough, though. And I understand it's tough, and this is not something that you can do, in 10 minutes. It takes time, and you have to decondition yourself from a lot of that family in the head, that negative self-talk, that shaming and blaming. And then you have to learn how to be more compassionate with yourself, helping yourself going forward. And it's about exploring your interests and passions. What do you really like to do? What are things that are important to you that you feel really connect to who you are? For me, it's playing guitar. It's also, I think, as a psychologist, I love being a psychologist. I love everything about it. I totally enjoy what I do. I think it's awesome. I love doing this YouTube channel because I'm able to reach a whole bunch of folks who want to learn this stuff and benefit from it. That is my interest and passion. What's yours? And if you don't know it, be patient. Remove the fear and doubt that's there and allow yourself to really look at it. And you know what? It takes time to explore different things. When I first started college, I started as a business major. Man, I hated that. And I really hated economics. I hated that class. And what happened is there was a speech class, and in the speech class, we talked about phobias and fears, and I was just like lit up. I was like, what? This is so cool. And I went and I changed my major, I believe, might have been a few days after that, because I just loved it. What's yours? Allow yourself a degree of exploration and time, and it's not going to be perfect, and you may change it, and that's okay. It's okay to pivot. You don't have to find one thing and, I'm going to have this forever and this is what I'm going to do. You don't have to do that. It's okay to pivot. Be gentle with yourself, and no blaming and shaming. That just isn't part of it. Continue to work on those healthy relationships, and also recognize what is that guilt and self-doubt that you've internalized from your narcissistic parent. There are some of those seeds that they planted in your sense of self that have influenced you in your decision-making, in doing what you want to do, in achieving the things that are of value to you. And it's important to look at those things because a lot of times, if it's for your parent, there tends to be a lot of guilt and self-doubt with it. You're forcing yourself to do something that maybe you really don't want to do. Now, there can be cultural factors. There can be certainly thousands of other factors in there. And we have to take those into consideration. But look at the guilt. Look at the self-doubt that you are putting on yourself. It may have originated as a seed from your narcissistic parent, but how has it germinated? How has it continued to grow and influence who you are? Which leads us to that guilt and self-doubt. What is that? That's part of that family in the head. It's part of that self-talk that you talk yourself down to. A lot of times, that family in the head tends to be mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, people that you're close to that are in your head, and you've internalized that voice about how much of a loser you are, or how you can't do this, you can't do that, you'll never be happy, you'll never be good enough. You got to push back on that. That is a manipulation that you've internalized, and you've turned it on yourself. Stop being your enemy and be your ally, and that's what you need to do. That's what you need to focus on. When you're an ally to yourself, you move yourself forward. You have a greater sense of identity. You have an ability to push back on those seeds that have grown into this giant oak over time that's in your way. You can go around it and you can cut it down too. Either way, you're mitigating the influence it has over your life, and you are taking control. And ways to do that is seeking support in friends that are not hypercritical, friends that are patient and understanding and consistent as well. And that can be really hard. It can be really hard to find good friends, and you don't need 25 of them. I mean, in my life, to be honest, I probably have about three really good friends. And those really good friends, I know that if something's burning down in my life, these are people that I can reach out to and I can count on. And those are really valuable relationships. They're priceless. And it's also about setting realistic goals for yourself. Like, what do you want to achieve? Like for me, knowing what my guitar goals are, that's important for me. Also knowing what my goals are as a psychologist, or writing a book, what my goal is for that, doing this video, what's my goal for that. So it's having short-term goals and long-term goals. What are my relationship goals? I've been married a really long time, but I still have goals with her that we want, that we've talked about and agreed on, and that we continue to work towards. And it's about having those things. It's setting those realistic goals and working towards them. If you don't have goals and you have more of an externalized view, which a lot of folks do, which is, well, I'll know when I get there. It's like going to Disney World without a map. It's just you get in the car and you're like, well, I'm just going to go that direction and I'll hit it eventually. Well, I mean, you might. The odds are pretty low that you'll hit it. So it's always better to kind of stop, take some time, and plan it out on how to get there. And you can absolutely get there. And lastly, please, please, please do this. Forgive yourself. Everybody has made mistakes. Everybody has said things, done things that they wish they didn't. That's part of the human experience. But shaming and blaming, that doesn't prevent you from doing it. That actually causes you to feel more shame, more blame, more self-doubt, and it causes you to be stuck in this pattern, feeling low, feeling negative, that fosters a lot of self-contempt and hatred. But self-forgiveness opens doors. It absolutely does. It says, you know what? I did this. I shouldn't have. I'm going to start doing it differently. I did that, and I recognize it, see it. Maybe you have to make reparations. Maybe you have to have conversations with people, but it's doing things differently. And recognize you're not going to change anybody else. The only thing that you can change is you. And forgiveness is a huge, huge component of that. Please be patient with yourself. Please embrace yourself going forward. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and hit that bell. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.